I represent the show,
Yes,
but the show won.
but that's a track record. So you better do it right.
Yes, yes.
Well, my daughter has 3 Emmys,
Okay, well,
so I need to get a third award of some kind.
Okay. Should I get rid of my hand?
Tonight, I thought we would at least start talking about immigration, because I think in large measure, many of the issues, not only in the United States, but certainly Western Europe, and possibly even worldwide, have to do with immigration and what it represents to the people who are already here. So,
When you were talking about Western Europe, that's the big problem with Brexit. They wouldn't have had Brexit if it weren't for the
right. But
immigration.
there are other things as well. I was listening to an analysis last night, which I thought was really on target. When there's so much change going on in the world, and it is a massive amount of change. Not that we haven't had change in various times of human history, but this is the one that we're really coming to grips with. And people are looking for an anchor. They're looking for something to hold on to. Excuse me. And one of the things they hold on to is religion. Another thing they hold on to is nationalism or tribalism, as a sort of a generic term. It's us against the rest of the world. Immigration becomes a symbol of all these changes that are happening. And without thinking about it, without rationally considering good, bad, or indifferent, what it means, they say these are the changes. And if we didn't have this, then things would go back to the way they were in the good old days when everything was okay.
And so the good old days was the time that they didn't have Africans and the other groups coming over. Now they, in terms of immigration, we're looking at it a lot because we are at the point where we want to send back these people who didn't come here, what they say as legal. And so the focus is on the minorities, the Mexicans, the Africans, that group more than others.
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting. It was a thing in the paper today, which I thought was apropos of exactly what I was talking about. Donald Trump has decided that all the people who came from Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos at the end of the Vietnamese War should be considered as non-citizens and eligible for deportation. Now, these people have been here guaranteed 40 years. And if they aren't safe, use the term safe, and to be considered permanent residents, even if they aren't citizens, who else is? My grandparents came around 1900, so that's 120 years. Is that enough?
So
Well,
are
I don't know how far back years go, but
1890.
okay, so that's 130 years.
Yeah, that's grandparents.
40 years, so
1890, and I think on my father's side it was probably around 1900.
okay, so is that far? What is legal? I mean, these people came; they were brought here.
There was a treaty actually between U.S. and the Cambodian and Vietnamese government. Some treaty was kind of uncomfortable treaty that allowed the people to come as a part of the settlement or whatever they called it, and so that has become a problem there.
And what about the Cubans?
Yes.
The Cuban community.
Yeah.
They didn't come legally.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them came on
the boats.
On the boats,
Yeah.
and the wet foot, dry foot.
Mm-hmm.
You landed, you could stay. You didn't land, we'll send you back.
That's probably why Trump wants to get rid of Rubio.
But Rubio supports him.
Well, a little less so now than he
Oh.
did before. And I wonder after this announcement how far Rubio will be willing to.
Well, at this time, actually, if you look at the worldwide problem, the problem has become that we have confounding problem. Problem is that you have a lot of turmoil in the Middle East and a lot of religious turmoil independent of Middle East, and a lot of this turmoil is related to Islamic religion, a lot of the terrorism throughout the world. And so all the turmoil that has resulted out of the Arab Spring has resulted in people from Middle East running away from the cruelty of war. And unfortunately, they happen to be Muslims. And that has resulted in the backlash that we don't want them, they are the other. Because not only that they are the other, although we created the problems for them to really run away, but at the same time, because they are Muslims or they are different color now at the same time, so we don't want them. And that has created a backlash not only in Europe, even here. Even here people were saying we don't want Syrians, we don't want Iraqis. Obama is letting all these people in. Look at all that they are letting them in, and they are all terrorists, and they're going to blow us up all up.
And the thing that I feel badly about is that those persons who came here, their parents came here, and now we're talking about sending the family back, and the children and grandchildren doesn't know the country that they would be sent back to. They don't know the country. They don't have the language. And I feel sad about that we are beginning to think that way.
So in that case, doesn't that also affect Donald Trump? His grandparents also came from Germany.
Yes.
So how many years is that? 100 years?
Germany's a good place.
Oh, okay.
It's almost Norway. Not
Oh,
almost,
yes.
almost
Oh,
Norway.
okay.
Yeah,
It's all
it's-
the rest of these.
It's irrelevant that they started World War I and World War II, but don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means we just forget about that part.
Actually, the first group that the American colonies, or when they became a country, tried to limit the immigration of and send back were the Germans. So there's a long history if you want to go back to our founding fathers.
I laugh because they brought people over here that didn't even want to come.
Yeah.
And that's my group.
And even the ones who did want to come, in many cases, came in what amounted to indentured servitude.
Slavery.
Well, you'd come and somebody would pay your way or sponsor you. In return, you did what they told you to do for some period of time. And a lot of the Latin Americans who are coming up on the same basis.
But you also have to recognize that a lot of the so-called Hispanic population did not come in. They were part of the continent. They were living in the territories which were not United States, which became part of United States after the Louisiana Purchase. So you had a lot of Hispanic kind of influence all over, with Spanish speakers, and then suddenly they became part of United States.
Look at Texas.
Yeah.
Americans went to Texas, became a Mexican citizens so they could earn land, and then there was a revolution in Mexico, and Mexico, the president, Santa Anna, said, we're going to abolish slavery.
Yep.
At that point, the Americans who had become Mexican citizens revolted because they wanted to have slavery.
Yes, of course.
Little piece of history I just learned.
And is that when Texas became an independent country?
Yes.
And then they joined the United States.
Yes.
That's why you have the Lone Star.
Just last weekend, came back yesterday. My daughter went to Mexico City, and she did some traveling, touring, and She was there for the celebration of Guadalupe, and as it turns out, whether you believe it or not, the Blessed Virgin appeared in Guadalupe,
Guadalupe, yeah.
which is in Mexico,
Yes.
in 1537.
That's a big celebration they have actually.
But Jamestown was 1607. That's when we started. Plymouth was 1620.
1492 is when when the
Yeah.
Caribbean was settled.
Yeah, and
I shouldn't say settled. Once taken over.
Taken over.
well, it was
I mean,
discovered,
Columbus, yeah.
except for maybe the people who were already there.
Yeah. Well,
They might have discovered it before that, but and,
the only meaningful discovery.
yeah, but no, seriously, so Mexico has a much longer tradition than we in the United States, and I knew that doing history in grammar school, I knew that they were in Mexico first, and there's a lot of shipping of gold back and forth. No, back.
Back, okay.
But it just don't. I never really thought about the settling of Mexico prior to the existence of white people in North America, in what we now call the United States.
But that's history actually. Because
Well, of course it's history, but if you talk to the average American, everything began, and Columbus 1492, but nothing really happened until 1607.
well, it began with the
Jamestown.
Pilgrims
Yeah.
or Jamestown.
Jamestown,
Jamestown.
and then the Pilgrims, and
Only the people in Virginia know about Jamestown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's actually
New
Pilgrims.
Englanders know about Plymouth.
yeah, Boston was 1630, and my high school was 1635.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
What high school was that?
Boston Latin,
Boston Latin.
Boston Latin.
and
Ben Franklin.
long
Ben
time.
Franklin. Is that Benjamin
Oh,
Franklin?
Ben Franklin was a hell of a lot later than that.
But who founded the Boston Latin School?
oh, I don't know.
I thought it was Ben. but it was
No,
not
no,
Benjamin.
no,
Ben
no, no.
Franklin
Who
was around during the Revolution.
Yeah, I know, but I was just wondering
was-
who
that
founded
was-
this.
He never graduated, actually. He went to Philadelphia, and
We started printing.
what the Latin school people, his name is up on the assembly hall.
I see. Okay.
But because at least when I was going, 3 out of 4 kids flunked out. When they talk about Franklin, oh yeah, he flunked out.
Well, that,
No, but,
actually, that's interesting. That in order that goes back to kind of moving away from immigration. Maybe I should not. I will not say anything.
Well, the other humorous thing we talk about as Latin school people is, the first graduating class was 1636, and they needed someplace to go, so they decided, well, why don't we create a school? Let's call it Harvard.
Oh, oh, I see.
And
Okay.
Harvard was 1636.
Oh, wow.
So you know your history.
Well, for those 5 years.
And going from Boston to Cambridge.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just a slight trip across the river, so it wasn't that
Actually,
hard.
I was just taking a tour at Harvard this summer, and it turns out it had a totally different name. And when John Harvard, who never saw Cambridge, contributed some books
Yes, that's what
and a
he
couple of dollars, they renamed it in his honor. But that was significantly later.
did. Well, in contrast, you have Yale. The Yale was founded with money that came from India.
Really?
Because the guy was governor of the city or state of Madras, Yale, and then he gave some money up there, and for a good cause, and there you are.
I didn't realize that.
See, but it has a better tradition than Harvard itself.
Having gone to neither one of them,
Yeah, we don't have to worry
I
about it.
don't care.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. But going back to immigration, it's interesting that that you have, as you said, it's a worldwide problem.
Yes.
Because and as I was pointing out, it has been compounded because people have associated it with the other party being different religion, and coming from countries who have coming from the out of the region of the world where a lot of terrorists also came out. So it has become a rallying cry, not only in the United States and Europe, but even in India, for example. You had people trying to come across from what used to be called Burma, the Rohingya Muslims, and there was a huge hue and cry. Why are we getting these Muslims in here? They're all terrorists. They were all refugees. They were being killed, but then they ended up in Bangladesh, and of course I don't know whether they ended up in India also, but or not. I forgot. I don't remember. But what I read Indian politicians saying is, India is not a shelter house. We can't allow people to come in here because they are all terrorists. So it's interesting how that
Well, there's
dynamic works.
another interesting fact, at least for Brexit.
Yes.
The huge wave of immigration were people from Poland
Oh, because they used to come across the border.
because of the free flow of workers. They were coming from Poland for work in a lot of towns. As you go someplace where you at least speak the language, and so people would congregate. The issue was Poland, although from a political point of view, I'm sure everybody was talking about the Muslims and the Syrians, but the Pakistanis, who had been there for a couple of hundred years,
Yes.
nobody seemed to have a problem with
Which
that.
is interesting actually, because you can actually demonize.
That's
as-
not true.
Too. No.
That's not true either. Actually,
Yeah, there were a lot of Indians there,
Yes.
and they had a big problem with the Pakistanis.
Actually, this is interesting because this is what if you talk to the South Asian immigrant populations, they have, again, this is another problem. They have actually congregated in different areas. You have Indian segments, and then you have the Pakistani segments and Bangladeshi segments. And if you are called a Paki, which is kind of derogatory,
Well,
the
yeah.
Indians don't like it because they can't be called Pakis, because Pakis are usually associated with all kinds of problems, and so there are riots in those areas. Whereas in Indian segments, I guess, not many. I have not heard about riots, but I have heard that if you are called a Paki, it's a bad idea to call an Indian guy a Paki, which is again how you can demonize people.
Yeah,
But one issue is
Go ahead.
this, and that is in all the countries that we have talked about, now the leaders are not getting together a group of people to say, for example, in this country, we don't have our leader getting ordinary people together to say what should we consider and how should things go. We have one or two leaders saying this is how this country will go, without input from these citizens that we have here now. And I think we need to go back to hearing the voice of the ordinary citizen.
It's the ordinary citizen who's being being used to create the problem.
Yes,
U.S. Civil War.
Yes.
Who fought the war? The officers were officers and gentlemen. They were plantation owners. They tended to be rich. The guy who was shooting and dying were people who never had and never would have a slave. They couldn't afford it. They didn't have enough land, whatever. They had been convinced that this war was a war for the Southern way of life. It had nothing to do with them, but they were given the opportunity to be participants in it. And they fought and they died.
Yes, and they probably was told that these slave people are coming over taking your job. But
No,
you-
no, no,
you
no. Because
wouldn't-
by that time there wasn't much importation of slaves. After about 1830, I think it was, the importation stopped. It was, this is my position. At least I'm not a slave. At least I'm not black. And they fought and they died for it. That person, if you asked him, what do we do about immigration, or what do we do about, pick your topic, they have been indoctrinated to go along with ideas that are not in their real self-interest. So I don't think if you go back to the common guy really hasn't thought these things through. They're reacting emotionally, and that's, I think, in large measure what the person I was quoting earlier was trying to say. Things are going too fast. They don't feel like they're profiting from it. The fact that they're living longer, living healthier, their kids have an opportunity to live even longer and healthier, maybe not economically as good, but at least they'll be around a long time. That they're ignoring that. They want to go back to the good old days in the 1950s, when the white Anglo-Saxon, basically, that was the only voice you ever heard.
And back in the 50s, did you hear whether our leaders were raping people?
You didn't hear about it, but it may well have happened.
Well, if you listen to the stories about John F. Kennedy, it kind of gets muddy. I mean, actually, if you really read about it and listen to all the stories people tell, he was the upstanding president I looked up to. Now, when you listen to all the stories, it becomes kind of, oh my God. So he was actually with Marilyn Monroe. His brother was with Marilyn Monroe, and the mafia guy was with Marilyn Monroe, and Sinatra was with Marilyn Monroe. What else was happening? It's kind of interesting, but then...
and by
But
the
right
way,
now-
as far as I can tell, these are all consensual
Yes.
things.
Right
Even
now.
Bill Clinton,
Yes.
the Monica Lewinsky thing, Monica came after
Yes,
Bill.
it was
Bill didn't
also-
go after Monica. Women, I'm told, tend to like powerful men. They tend to be attracted to power. And some women act on their attraction, some don't.
Well, I think the men
Yeah.
are going after all these women. You think women are going for power?
I didn't say that no man has ever raped anybody. I never said that. It is time immemorial. It's been going on, and it's not a good thing. But
And
yeah.
I'm saying that a lot of the relationships are consensual. But however, the leaders are making it non-consensual, and suddenly they're asking all these people to come forth that have been raped or paid money not to
Right.
talk about their relationship. And it has to change.
I agree, but the nature, the Trump situation, with the possible exception of him walking in on the teenage girls for Miss Universe or whatever it was that he walked into their dressing room while they were undressed, the relationships had basically been consensual.
Whether he paid money or not, but that's different.
But he often paid
Yeah.
the money afterwards.
Yes.
Except on that island, where it was just in the news recently that this guy, he was a very wealthy guy. He had all kinds of men going there, Trump, Kennedy, lots of
Okay.
industrialists, and the attraction was girls under 15.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah,
But
And-
is that proven already or no?
he went to jail for it,
Oh,
and he just got his I don't know whether it was commuted or he served his time 5 years, and he was able to still carry on his business, but so he would leave the jail, go to work, run his company, and come back to jail
oh, come
for
back
the
to
night.
jail?
For the night,
Oh,
Actually,
every day.
I worked with some people like that at Bull in the early 1980s, and guy was in for second-degree murder, and he came to Bull. He worked his day, and went back to prison for the night.
so he was doing some good work.
Yeah, he
was-
actually was, from the point of view of somebody he was working with, he was doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, if he was working with
It's not an unusual thing, and in a sense, it's a good thing because hopefully, when the guy ended up getting killed
Oh.
in a bar fight, but had he survived, when he got out, he would have actually been able to hold a job or get a job because he'd shown I can do this.
Actually, going back to the immigration, how you can demonize people. I just thought of this example that long time ago when we had India there, when we still have India, you had when was the temple Romans broke the temple in Israel.
70 approximately.
So we had Jews come to India, and they were happy. And Saint Matthew came to India, and we had a lot of Christians in India. And we had, when Muhammad's children were being, not children, actually all the relatives, they were being chased and killed. They ran to India and settled there, and a lot of them actually have settled there. And that's how a lot of Muslims came in there. They came as traders as well, and these people also came. And so you had Islam come to Iran, and all the Zoroastrians who escaped, they came and settled in India. And so like that, you can see waves of people have come to India, and they have actually built what we see right now. We had generals, Jewish generals in our army, in Indian army. You had the biggest businessmen in the country are Zoroastrians. You have all the Christians that are in India. They are well off all over the place, but this has happened over years and years, hundreds of years, thousands of years actually, since St. Matthew's, that was a long time ago. And now the thinking is the leadership, what you were talking about, how the leadership can change the thinking of people, looking at the emotional piece, that everybody who tries to come in here, they are your enemies. So that goes against the ethos of the whole country, actually religion as well. But you can still sway the feelings, and everybody is on tenterhooks if you tell them, well, Rohingya are going to come in. Well, that's a bad idea. Anybody comes in, bad idea.
So how do we solve that?
So I don't know. That's I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not only just U.S. problem. It's throughout the world. You see this in France, and you see it in the Netherlands,
All of Europe.
Germany,
Germany.
and but you can emotionally charge people and demonize others.
Yes.
And here you have ability to demonize anybody who comes across the Mexican border, whether they are from Mexico or not, as long as they try to come through. And what is interesting is, during Obama time also, we had people come like the way we have caravans coming right now, and nobody heard of them, because Obama dealt with them the way they should be dealt with. and a lot of them were turned away, and some of them probably got asylum, and nobody heard of this.
Well,
But nobody demonized them.
but we're now, based on Trump's announcement that he's looking at getting rid of all the Cambodians and the Vietnamese, etc., who fought for us,
Yes.
who gave up their lives
They
and their
get-
countries
Yes.
because they're not like us, whatever us is. We want to go back to the good old days when we just ate pizza and hot dogs, and none of this non-American stuff.
Well, talking about pizza, pizza is not
I
good
understand.
old. Good
I
old.
understand. I was deliberately
Yeah.
using that.
And then, that means the next group is all Italian.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so at least the Italians are okay.
And the,
Yeah, especially the mafia and Cosa Nostra, because they eat pizza.
they ate pizza, and and the meatballs.
Hey, in the 1950s, when I was a kid, I used to go and get, it was square at the time, huge square pizzas. I used to go down, and that's
New
what I
York?
did on a Sunday. I'd go bowling, which I'm not even sure where bowling comes from,
Okay.
and eat a couple of slices of pizza.
Wow,
And that was American.
that is American.
And oh, by the way, for New Year's, I always go for Chinese food. But
Well, that's actually tradition.
yes, I
And
think so.
they should all be thrown out too.
No, but we've got to leave the cooks.
Okay.
Yeah. What about Christmas though? Christmas is a Chinese food day also, isn't it? Because
not for
But
me.
those,
Well, some
all the restaurants are closed except for the Chinese restaurants.
for some Jewish groups, yes, it is true.
Well, actually,
Well, I mean,
oddly
'cause-
enough, it's very common for Jews to break the fast on Yom Kippur with Chinese food.
And actually, I had my academic mentor. She used to talk about how her dad used to like. He loved the Chinese fried rice, and he particularly liked fried rice with bits of bacon in it. I said, "Anna, how did that go?" She said, "He liked it." I said, "Okay." I
and
said,
he
"Okay."
liked the delivery.
Yeah, he went to the restaurant at that time. But she used to say she used to quip. She said, "Well, he loved it." I said, "Okay, then that's good enough."
To me, you make a decision as to
Yes.
what you're going to follow,
Yes.
and you follow it.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't
Yeah.
agree with my decision
No.
is your problem, not
Yes.
mine.
I said, "Okay, so that's good." But
Well, okay, so you asked the question a little bit earlier, and what do we do about this idea that we're demonizing everybody? And the answer is, it's got to be education.
Yeah, basically what we're doing is we're blaming other people for our misfortune.
For example,
Well, they're taking my jobs. They're taking our jobs.
yes, yes.
And it's irrelevant that I didn't want to do that job.
yes, yes.
All these Mexican people from Mexico and Central America and South America coming up, and they're picking crops, and when's the last time you saw a whole bunch of rich white kids out picking crops?
Actually, apropos, a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, an Alabama town, I think it was Alabama, passed a law basically making it impossible for illegal immigrants to live there. And they all left. And so the farmers said, I got nobody to pick my crops. So they put out ads, please come. The few, and I do mean few, who came and applied couldn't do the work.
Yeah.
it's a tough job. I mean,
I don't think it was the town. I think it was the state.
I thought it was the state.
I think
Actually,
it was the whole state, but maybe it was.
They were talking about the state.
yeah, that's what.
And the crops were dying on the vine.
In any case, whatever it was, it didn't happen the next year.
Also, I didn't know that.
That's the way
Yeah.
I heard it.
Oh, okay.
Money is more important than
Yes.
Well, money is
And-
more important to the guy who owns the field. Whether it's more important to the guy who doesn't own the field and just sort of sitting watching the world go by is not clear. But if you look at Donald Trump, who's, illegal immigration, got to have things done properly. He's got people working in his properties who not only are immigrants, but in some cases are illegal. Somebody just came out.
Yeah, there was a news item about that. But
Yeah.
is that really true that they were talking about that? There
well,
was
certainly in Mar-a-Lago, but that's where it came out. But if he has a hotel in New York City, he's employing
Yes.
Right.
Illegals.
It-
'Cause
supposedly
most of the people in hotel, the maids and
Yes.
they're all Hispanic.
they're all brown people actually.
right. Look at nursing homes. Look
Yes,
at
same thing,
assisted
same
living.
thing, yes.
And we need to be nice to these people
Yes.
because at my age,
Yeah.
at some point in the foreseeable future, they're going to be wiping my ass.
Yes,
I
I
want
mean,
them to be gentle.
I mean, they are most of them are
Let me just-
from Africa.
Let me just say that as a nurse,
Yes.
and working with older people, older veterans, and older everyone, those persons who work in facilities like that, they need a job. However, they are decent and kind to the people.
I
that
did
they
not
work
say anything against that because
What-
I have shopped and helped out people who were in assisted living and nursing homes, etc. And in large measure, nothing is absolutely true. Because I can give you examples of people who were not nice. As a general rule, they cared. And
As
they
a
did the
general
job.
rule, they're normal.
Well, better
Yeah.
than normal. They cared.
No, yeah, right. That I suppose caring is abnormal these days. But no, seriously, you'll find some small percentage of everybody
Of course.
is not nice. But in general, people are nice.
Right. And we have to understand, and we also have to understand that if we accomplish this goal of making America America again, what's going to happen to all the things that need to be done that people aren't willing to do?
Well, can making America an American again, can you ask your leaders to define that? For example, besides the immigrants coming in, how would they clarify the slavery that was brought in?
Actually, they tried to do something about that. It was called Liberia. They tried to send them back. It didn't work very well, particularly to the Africans who were there before the Americans showed up.
Actually, there is somebody was talking about how it was Abraham Lincoln who started to send people to Liberia. I don't know whether that's true or not.
I don't know.
But
I
this
know
is
it
one of the
happened
things.
after the war, and
So they
it didn't.
stopped.
Well, it didn't work well for the people who were already there. And some of this justification is, well, they're ignorant and they're savages, and they forget that before the European expansion, major civilization in the western part of the Eurasian area was in Northeast Africa. There were major civilizations there, very, very wealthy and strong, and they were interacting with India.
Yes.
And
And actually, this is interesting because we have, by the way, I forgot this. We do have African populations living in India too, and they are, which is kind of interesting. And they were brought in as slaves by the Muslims, and then they were brought in, and then they were part of the army, and couple of them actually took over. And two of these became what you could call they were given the designation Nawab. That means essentially a feudal lord. Feudal lords in two different places in India. They were actually Africans. I forgot. And now they are living in all different places in India and they have maintained their tradition. Which is
so
interesting.
it's interesting that my family background was that we had people that was part of the family who was a part of World War One,
Wow.
World War Two, the Korean War, and it just goes on. And our family have been proud of that they were actually American citizens. And we are still proud of being American citizens. However, we need to have our, not only the leaders, but people come together to talk about where we want our country to go and how we want to define our country.
Do we want to be Yugoslavia, which was a very, very comfortable, not necessarily wealthy, but not poor environment made up of a whole group of different people who in the past hadn't liked each other, but for 40 some odd years got along fine, intermarried, economically was becoming very, very strident, and one guy that I know of, I'm sure there were many others, but one guy, Milosevic, decided the way he was going to get political power was to say Serbia is Serbia, and all the rest of these people
Don't belong.
don't belong, and we want them out.
You had Radovan Karadzic and
Okay.
Slobodan Milosevic,
Right.
two people.
And getting back to what's happening here today, do we have our own version of that with Donald Trump and the people who are supporting him? They're saying, when you can actually say, hey, you know what, all these Cambodians and Laotians, etc., who've been here for 40 years, they don't necessarily belong. They should be in a position to be deported like all the other undesirables. I'm sure there's some gang of Asians that we can blame for all of the problems. As soon as we get rid of MS-13, then we'll go after this group. MS-13 is basically gone, so it's time to go after this group. And the way we'll take care of it is we'll grab them when they come in to work or wherever it is that they're doing and send them away because they don't belong here.
And we will be sending them to another planet now.
Well, no, we're going to send them back to where they came from or where their ancestors came from.
Yes. but actually, this is interesting. At the same time, talking about they take over jobs, is that you have Walmart now has automated janitors. And Bezos has automated all these headquarters where most of the work is done by the robots. So, and at the same time, you have General Motors closing factories. So, I don't know whether you can actually, number one, bring back all the jobs that are gone, and doesn't that also at the same time tell us that we need to inject the country with newer talent that can bring in newer high-tech jobs and innovate at the same time? Or do we want to become like Japan or become like any other European country where they are already old people and no innovation and sit back and relax?
Yeah, actually, you really don't need innovation. I think what the best thing is that everyone become a banker.
Okay.
Oh, that works. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's a banker.
But
Yes.
and
By the
we'll
way,
just buy
bankers
stuff.
are being automated as well.
Yes.
But a perfect
Yes.
example of automation that we sort of ignore, 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, the vast majority of the people in the United States were farmers or worked on farms, etc. It isn't true anymore. Why? Automation.
Yes.
One planter can do what 100 used to be. The thing that would have killed slavery eventually, if been allowed to, was the fact that suddenly machines could do it a whole bunch cheaper than any person.
Now the robots, people will need to understand
Yeah.
that whoever is designing the robots, and if they start designing robots that are brown and black, we will still have the same problem.
So you mean robots won't like each other?
Dr. Seuss wrote a book called The Sneetches.
Oh, okay.
And the Sneetches, there were two kinds of Sneetches, and I don't remember what the differentiation was.
Oh, I've got
But-
to read it though.
One hated the other because of the difference. And then somebody invented a machine that would add this, whatever this feature was. And all the people who didn't have the feature went in and suddenly the same as everybody else. Well, that wasn't any good. So the people who originally had the feature went to another machine, got rid of it. It was going around and around. Everybody wants to be different, and the difference is better.
Well, you have
As
to be
opposed
superior.
to the difference. The difference is what makes you special. I'd like to point out that your name is a way of identifying you, but I guarantee you there are hundreds of thousands of Margaret Hendersons. The thing that makes you unique is everything that you started with, your genes up through your experiences. That means that you're unique. There can be no one else who can replace you. So as long as everybody's the same, I don't need you or you. I'll get somebody else. They're the same. It's interchangeable. It's like a Colt revolver. The pieces can be added in. But when you start thinking about what makes you unique is what makes you special.
I mean that's a fundamental principle of respecting everybody as an individual,
Yeah.
and making sure that if I want to be respected, I ought to be able. I not only able to, I should, as a principle, respect individually everybody. But that's kind of lost in the game, I guess.
No, it's quite interesting that I can't remember her name, but this person who is trying to run for office, and she's good. However, she said that she was Indian.
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren, okay. And as a result of that, she's being clearly criticized. She had her DNA done, and centuries ago, there was Indian in her background. But now she is being patted and saying, oh, she didn't tell the truth, and they're going after her.
Well, actually, she was being vilified by Trump and his associates from way back when, because he labeled her as Pocahontas, and because of that, that's why she fell into that trap, and he continues to call her Pocahontas.
Right. And the actual story was when she was sitting around the dinner table, and the mother was saying when the mother married the father's family disowned them because the mother was an Indian. Whether she was an Indian or not doesn't matter. She was labeled that. And
I mean,
Well,
so
she grew up with those stories.
right.
Yes, and DNA tells some
It
background.
gives you some idea, although interestingly enough, the American Indian population is angry about it because now it goes along with something that they're angry about having to do with genetics.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is they do not have to get angry at her because she's not claiming to be part of a tribe. She's
Right.
only saying that, look, I have some Indian heritage.
Yes.
That's it. Leave it at that. And she's not claiming to be, okay, I will be part of your tribe and give me part of your land.
What I think the issue is with the people that can't stand her is they say that she claimed this to get to get into Harvard or to get get preferential
Yes.
treatment, as opposed to when she checked off.
Well, she was taking a chance because if you are black or brown, in the past you just couldn't and she's older.
Mhm.
Harvard wasn't really taking a lot of people like that.
Well, when she was doing it, they were trying to differentiate. When I was going to college, the only school that made a point of trying to have a diverse population was Princeton, and so that was the goal. I go to a good school, and they actually want me there. Harvard didn't.
I mean, Harvard did
I
not allow.
wasn't capable of making either school. Let me clarify that right now.
But Harvard did not accept Jewish people actually for a long time.
Yeah, knowingly accept
Yes.
them. So
Which is going to be. I mean,
I was the first Jew to work for Utica Mutual Insurance Company because nobody asked, and I got a co-op job. And the only reason I know that I was the first was about 2 years later, there was a big newspaper story, I mean a big headline newspaper story, that they had hired a Jewish secretary.
so they did not recognize you; they recognized somebody else.
But yeah, I suppose
were
I should have been angry.
But
that
you were not Jewish secretary.
Well,
So you were
Somebody else.
quiet about your background.
nobody asked, and I didn't say. It wasn't.
Don't
It
tell
wasn't
them.
significant. It wasn't meaningful. I went to work for 3 months, and
They like your work.
they evidently liked my work. They told Antioch that I did an acceptable job as a co-op,
And that was it.
but things were different then. By the time she was at Harvard, they were trying desperately to become more diverse, and according to all the people that were interviewed at Harvard, the fact that she had marked that she had American Indian background had nothing to do with her being
But
hired.
that's what she also
Right.
talks about. She doesn't.
And nobody would have cared,
No.
at all, except she was pushing the Consumer
Protection.
Protection
That's
Agency,
all.
and this was a horrible thing. You're gonna make American business actually take care of their
Responsibilities.
yeah. That was the problem. All the rest of it didn't matter.
I mean,
And the
that's-
reason why she ended up being senator, because Bush wouldn't appoint her to be the head of the agency that she forced through. So she needed a job, and she ran for Senate.
I mean, that's why they want to get rid of. Did they get rid of it? But they want to get rid of it.
They hired a guy to
Who
be
is
the
what?
head who wants to get rid of it,
Yes.
and I don't know what's going on with it, but whenever you hear issues like that, they're not pushing, they're not going to court and saying
Yes.
this is wrong.
But hopefully.
One of the ways you get rid of it is when people leave, you don't replace them.
Right.
Yes.
And then
You sit there.
and then you cut their budget, and then you cut it more, and then they have to lay off some people, and
And you make sure to
you
lay off
restrict
the
their
people who are striking
responsibilities, and you can only look at this kind of problems. You can't look at that kind of problem, and that's how they do it.
And hopefully the next president will reverse it, but you need a compliant Congress, because right now the Congress says, that's absolutely right. Screw these goddamn consumers.
Well,
All we want is their money. We don't want the.
Well, the system will change soon. The House of Representatives will be becoming Democrat, and the Senate is Republican, the President Republican. But the thing is, they have to now, because the House of Representatives are the ones that introduced the bills related to immigration and impeachment, that sort of thing.
Impeachment, yes. Immigration, I
no.
don't think.
You don't think,
Well,
well,
I don't think
impeachment.
so. Impeachment, they have to do
Yes.
it. And they have to do tax
Yes.
law,
So
but I don't think the
The
others.
monetary bill.
But any bill
Monetary
has to
bill.
pass both the House and
Yeah,
the Senate,
yes.
and then approved by the president.
yeah, and so
And-
now they have to start working, trying to work together.
Or not. There's no requirement that anything happens. You can have a
the-
total stalemate, and
The only thing that actually has to happen is some kind of a budget.
That's all.
no, we haven't had a
So-
budget in a long, long time.
Yes, we have. I mean, what I'm talking about is money has to be allocated.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that they can't borrow it and spend, but but that has to be approved.
But Trump says that if you don't give me the wall, I'm going to shut down the government.
Right.
That's what he has
Well,
already said.
yeah. I
And-
mean, the
and-
government's been shut down before.
Yeah,
Yes.
but he wants
Yeah.
to shut it down, and unless I'm going to sit and wait for the
and
money.
and that's
the wall.
probably and he probably has a lot of support with some
Yeah.
some idealists on the right, because they don't like the government doing anything.
I mean that's the essentially the Trump card. Forget the pardon the pun. It is the Trump card that it really resonates with the base. That as soon as he said that I don't care. I will shut down the government if you don't give me the wall. Everybody is, whoa, look at that. That is great president. He is actually acting presidential.
Yeah. Yes. And
Who said that?
Well, all the supporters,
and
me included.
that's
Support
just
that.
a restatement of my favorite fact. Half of the people in the country have below average intelligence.
Well, that's a,
Take that back.
No, absolutely. That's a fact.
see, that's a fact.
The mathematical average, half are above and half are below.
I mean, that is. I mean, if you ran the normal curve, that will tell you that. But at the same time, then that gets us into the whole discussion about who do you label half and who do you label the other half.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky situation.
Would you like to answer that?
No, it's very difficult. Actually,
And he's a neuroscientist.
no, actually, there are some data that I don't know how validated they are. That there are, for example, if you believe in IQ, which I have trouble with it because I'm not that intelligent. What people talk about is that if you ran the IQ tests, ran a normal curve on IQ test, look at the white Americans and look at the Asians. The Asians, their IQ is slightly higher
yes.
than the average white American.
Yes.
But see, what people forget.
That's it.
Yeah.
Make America
Yeah.
great again. Get more Asians.
Now, that is the,
I
what,
know your president won't send them
Yeah.
back.
or make the whites great
Yeah.
again. Get rid of all these intelligent
Yes,
people.
yes. Now this is where it becomes tricky. That what people forget is when you talk about the average, again it goes to 50-50. So if you talk about average white person is slightly below an average Asian, which is mostly Chinese and Japanese, what about all those other people who are above on the other side of the curve, who are white, and what about all the other Asians who are on the left side of the curve? So where does it end?
Yes.
So that's where it becomes tricky.
And what is intelligence?
Yes, I mean, that's why it's very
I
difficult.
watch people Sundays
Yes.
play football, and it is totally amazing to me that they can see a situation,
Yes.
process the information, and make a decision and take action in fractions of a second.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is where neuroscientists and neuroscience people have studied this, and it's only a certain very small fraction of people who can actually do that to process. While see the key thing there is what people have studied this is that when the ball player has begun his move to throw the ball, the person who is at the receiving end has made the assessment of which way the ball is going to travel, and he or she nowadays also, has maneuvered his position to a place to receive the ball at the right moment. And not everybody can do that.
Right. And that is, and whether that person can read as well as I can,
Doesn't
I
matter.
guarantee you there's no way I can do their job.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So does that mean that I'm not intelligent?
No.
And they're geniuses, or that they're different kinds of intelligence?
there are different kinds. That's where it gets murky. Is there are different kind of intelligence, and you may have one kind more than I have.